Welcome to the latest episode of Inside the Line, Real Stories by Real Cops. I'm Dave Rattigan, across from Dale Lawrence, former police officer, and to my right, our good friend, our frequent guest, Nathan Arroyo, comedian, actor, terrible fake laugher. See? So just to plug, we're going to talk about techniques that are used all day, every day, but first, here we're a special holiday episode, and we have good news, which is that our last show, who would think, but our last show was the most downloaded show we've had. And all I can say, Dale, is who would think that having a show about sex would be our biggest show?
Yeah, BB. She was a hit, baby.
Podcast. I should say
a star.
Podcast. She was a star.
Yeah.
She was very, very good. She was everything we hoped for. Well, everything I hoped for. You might have hoped for a little bit more. I know you were negotiating after the show. But, we had BB, the former sex worker, on, and she was great. And it was our biggest our biggest download to date. We had 6 people.
6.
Download.
Times around 1,500 is close to 10,000. Close to 10,000.
Why times 1,500?
I don't know, because you said 6, and you're thinking I was going to say 6,000, but you should have said like 10, and I would have said 10,000, which was closer to 10,000.
All right, so it's somewhere between 6 and 10,000.
Yeah.
All right, so we had somewhere between 6 and 10,000, but it was our biggest download to date. And we want to remind you, if you like the show, please share it. Please tell your friends. Get people to download it. Also, you can visit us at insidetheline.org or send us an email and tell us how much you like the show, or maybe how much you don't like it, or maybe why don't you talk about this? Why don't you talk about this? Or maybe, hey, I know a prostitute you can have on. Whatever you want to do, you can email us at realstoriesbyrealcops@gmail.com. realstoriesbyrealcops@gmail.com. And today we're going to talk about something that's what was last. Every day people have to do threat assessments.
Yeah, threat assessment and risk management.
Yeah, and you
do it every day. If you're going to blow a red light, that's risk management.
Oh,
are you going to go through it? Are you going to go through the light? That's a big risk you're taking going through a red light.
It's a good point. I drive home late at night, and I'm sure normal people go through this, but I drive a lot late at night. And so I'll be coming home from a gig. I come to a red light at a 4-way stop, and I sit there and I wait and I wait and I wait. And there's a voice in my head saying, "You're an idiot. Just drive."
Yeah.
Just drive. There's nobody here.
Threat assessment. There's no threat. Risk management. Unless the car coming in the opposite direction doesn't have its lights on, there's really no risk. Or unless there's a cop hiding somewhere.
That's the problem. Is that the cop hiding somewhere? But even the cop, I'll look around, I'll see nothing, and I'll think, well, what if a cop suddenly appears out of nowhere? But that's still stupid, because I would just tell the cop. Let me ask you this question: If I ran that light, if I'm stopped at the light,
yep,
and I look to the left, I look to the right, I look around, I think I'm not going to wait for this, and I just go. And suddenly a cop appears out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's an individual cop preference.
And if I tell the cop, look, there's nobody here, there's no damage, please don't ask me to open my trunk, I'd be okay, right, Nathan?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. This is why I know he's not listening. Every so often I look over there and I know he's not listening, and I just ask him. And anyway, that's a threat assessment. The same thing when Nathan's at a comedy show, and he's doing his act, and he's got some big guy heckling him. Nathan's going to look at that guy and think, should I put him down verbally?
Yep.
Should I engage him and try and get him to shut up because he's ruining my act?
But he's a big, intimidating looking guy.
He's a big, intimidating guy. And he's like, can I deal with this or can I not deal with it? And will I wind up getting punched in the face?
Threat assessment, risk management.
Yeah. I once had a
heckler. What would you do, Nate?
Yeah.
Well, what would I do?
Yeah, a really big, burly dude. Might have been drunk, too.
Big, burly, drunk man. I'd ask him how big his clitoris is.
Oh, boy.
Does that usually work for you?
I get to see the clit, so yeah.
That's gross. Well, I would think that would just get the guy scrambling to his dictionary trying to figure out what that is. Anyway, I had a guy once who heckled me, and I just said, so what do you do for work? I'm just trying to engage him, just to try and talk him and get him off the thing. And I said, what do you do for work? He says, I'm an MMA fighter.
Oh, boy, yeah. Enough said.
Yeah, it was at that point. He was
not worth the risk.
No, not for that $50 gig. Anyway, and ultimately, as you said, the thing with risk assessment And threat assessment is, if it's happening to you, you can't say, well, nobody will do this because it's against the law.
But I think before we even get into that, I think, unfortunately, in today's society, people believe that local law enforcement or state law enforcement or federal law enforcement has this magic ball, this crystal ball that they look into, and they can predict when the next terrorist act is going to happen, or they can predict when the next mass shooting is going to happen, or they can predict when the next school shooting is going to happen. I'm going to give you some insight from the law enforcement perspective. State and federal knows little to nothing about what's going on in your community. The only one who knows what's going on in your community, a community of 30,000, in a school or in a workplace, are the people that live in the community and that work or go to school in that community. So you should never rely on someone other than yourself, your family members, to protect you, because by doing that, you're putting your trust and your faith in them, and you've seen time and time and time again where people do not see anything. There's no, predictor of a mass shooting event that someone can stop. It's very rarely that it stops. You want to know when the feds come in? After the fact, and they do an analysis, and they're like, oh, yeah, we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you, they're full of shit, and don't ever rely on them. Rely on yourself, rely on your family, your friends, your co-workers, your students to keep each other out of trouble, because they're the ones that are in the know.
Okay, we're talking students, obviously, for school.
Yeah, because we're going to kind of focus. We're going to do risk assessment and threat assessment, risk management, more focused in the school setting, but you can do it in the workplace.
Yep.
You can do it. They do it at airports with airport security. They do it in computer networks. You do threat assessment and risk management at your house with your own computer with antivirus software. That's a risk management program, because you're going on porn sites, you're downloading all sorts of weird stuff. You don't want to get a virus on your computer.
Talking to you, Nathan.
Yeah, I know.
So you protect yourself with an antivirus software. It's the same thing.
All right. And obviously, unfortunately, we're going to talk about 3 different incidents, including 2 horrific mass murders that occurred recently, and could have been prevented. And of course, the second guessers always come out after this. In this case, we think
these 2 could have been prevented at that point in time.
Right. And one of them we've talked about in a previous podcast. But here's accused murderers: Darrell Brooks, age 39, Ethan Crumbley, age 15 years old. They had both come to the attention of law enforcement and school personnel because of their violent past and for recent threats. November 2nd, Darrell Brooks drove his vehicle into a holiday parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Horrible, caught on video. Just flew through that parade, aiming at. It looked like he was aiming at people.
Innocent people, just people in the parade route.
Yeah.
Killing 6, injuring over 60.
Awful. And
he was out on cash bail.
Yep.
He had a very, very, very long record, over 50 arraignments. Yep. He had just been involved in a domestic incident, and they gave him little or nothing cash bail, and they put him out there. See, if they had done a risk assessment, or if they even cared to have done a risk assessment and a threat assessment, they would have looked at that guy with his criminal history, his past behavior, some of his social media posts. They should have never let that guy out. That's like basic 3rd grade stuff we're talking about here. A 3rd grader can figure that out. Don't give the big bully a hard time, and you won't get your lunch money taken. Right, Dave? You figure that out in 3rd grade.
What is it? What is it?
I don't want to pick on
Nathan.
Nathan's nice and quiet over there right now.
I know. He's so docile some days. All right, here's the other one. Ethan Crumbley. We talked about this one before. November 30th, killed 4 students at Oxford, Michigan High School. Injured several more.
Around 11 or so, yes.
And then we talked about this. He was brought in. He made these threatening social media posts.
A couple of days prior.
A teacher found a picture that he had drawn. He comes in. His parents say, we're not going to take him. He's fine. He gave him a little story, and they said, okay, and they let him go. And then he shot up the school.
This one was even easier than Darrell Brooks, because this kid was asking for help. Not to say that if they had helped him at that moment, because some of his writings were, please help me, their voices won't stop and stuff like that. He was asking for help. They dropped the ball. The parents dropped the ball, the school dropped the ball, and anyone else in between dropped the ball. And they allowed it to happen. And like I said, you put your trust in these people to look at a situation and react accordingly, and they just blew it off because the school personnel, as I'm going to get into throughout the next 45 minutes, are highly incompetent. And they should have called a police officer, because a police officer does risk management and threat assessment 24 hours a day on their job. So they're so good at it, and it's very simple. The kid made threats. They were criminal threats. It's almost as 1, 2, 3. Arrest the kid, drag him out of the school, get him some help. Not to say that the help's going to change him, but at that moment in time, it would have changed him.
Yeah.
So that is a prime example that when threat assessment and risk management doesn't work because the people who are tasked with carrying it out are incompetent. Incompetent.
All right.
I have a question. About the school one.
Okay, go ahead.
Were there any interviews with like the other students at that school?
Oh, that's
about like, because I can tell you as someone who went to a high school.
You went to a high school?
I went to a high school. Yeah, it's the only form of education I ever graduated from.
Okay,
but I can guarantee you, if you talk to those like kids in that high school and you said, was there ever anything about this kid that made you feel unsafe or whatever? Every one of those kids would be like, oh, old Crumbles, yeah, he was a fucking psychopath. When I was still in high school,
that's what they would tell each other. You know what they would tell adults? They would tell, no.
No, I guarantee you, if adults ask these kids, just like, something wrong with the kid? Just like, yeah, there's something wrong with that fucking kid.
He's right at that. Especially if they didn't like,
fucking idiot.
Kids.
I know the kids know. I know the
kids who are afraid of another kid. Kids are legitimate. Even tough, burly, big kids, they're afraid of kids like that because they're just very evil. Yeah. They're very unconventional with what they do, and kids are like, that kid scares me.
Yeah. Well, that's
kids, I've seen kids like that. They're 120-pound kids, and they put fear of God in you because they have this look that goes right through you.
I've had interactions with the kids like that, and I get it. I get it. When I went there, when I went to school years and years ago, we had a one-room schoolhouse. Anyway. And
one-room schoolhouse, little house on the prairie, way out in the prairie, Dave.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question, Nathan.
Yeah.
Who do you think Dale hates more? Do you think it's social workers or school personnel?
Oh, God.
Hate's a strong word, but go ahead, Nathan.
You don't hate anybody. You just strongly
I can tell you who I hope he hates more. It's school personnel. A social worker at least has their heart in the right place. I feel like they might
have had their heart in the right place when they started schooling. Maybe 4 or 5 years in, I think everyone just gives up.
But like school personnel, everyone in a school sucks. They all suck. These teachers don't care about your fucking kids. They're just like, I'll teach you arithmetic, then you get the fuck out of my classroom. Yeah. You got beaten at home, Jimmy? That's your excuse for not bringing in your homework, you fucking pussy?
Was that your excuse for not doing your homework?
My dad broke my hands again. Huh? You should have written that essay with your feet, you little shit.
No, there's a lot of truth to what he's saying that, school people don't like to be instructed on how to handle discipline matters in schools. They don't like to be told how to do it. Whereas social workers, they do, at least initially, have their heart in the right place because they genuinely want to help kids in need. But unfortunately, sometimes they're put in over their head and they don't have enough life experience to deal with certain situations.
So we know this. We know sometimes even police officers overreact to situations.
Potentially.
No! Say it isn't so!
Let me ask you this. Do the police ever fail to act? Of course they do.
Yeah, there was the down in Parkland, Florida, in a school shooting, they failed to act on that. Do cops fail to act, or do they fail to see a situation for what it really is based on their lack of experience? Because if you're a 3-year cop in comparison to a 15-year cop, and depending on your background dealing with juvenile matters and mental health matters,